It's that time of year again, and no, I'm not talking about jingle bells and candy canes. I'm talking about my annual playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, the greatest RPG of all time, and yes, I'm including Skyrim in that list. Get at me in the comments. As it does every year, playing through Cyberpunk has got me thinking about not only the game itself, but the cyberpunk genre as a whole. So I thought I'd spend the next video or two talking about the cinematic titans that were not only brilliant pieces of filmmaking, but were prophetic in their analysis of humanity and its place in the universe. To that end, we're going to kick things off with one of the most iconic movies ever made, and one that still comes out on top when pitted against virtually anything modern Hollywood can produce: The Matrix. Released at the height of the Y2K craze, which, for you youngins in the audience, was yet another prediction about the end of the world, The Matrix was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Yes, we'd had mainstream dystopic cyber fantasy with the likes of Blade Runner and the Terminator franchise, but The Matrix took those as a jumping off point rather than rehashing what had come before. It was able to take the big questions that these films asked, like what does it mean to be alive, and add its own brand of stylized action that dominated the industry for the next decade or so. But we're not here for the action. There are plenty of other channels out there that can analyze that stuff better than I ever could. What we're here for is to take a look under the hood at all the things that kept this movie running at a beautifully breakneck pace until the credits rolled. The Matrix is a dense film. There's no two ways about it. Its world requires a ton of explanation, and its characters evolve in ways that you might not even realize at first glance. So how do you get all this across without boring the audience into a coma? With a novel, you can exposition dump pretty much whenever the mood strikes you. You have internal monologues, external monologues, and pages of narrative exposition to fully flesh out what's going on. If you tried to do that in a movie like The Matrix, all but the most hardcore sci-fi fanatics would be checked out by your second line of dialogue. The way The Matrix gets around this pitfall is by hooking you with the impossibilities of the world from minute one. It raises questions that we, the audience, have got to know the answers to. In the first 5 minutes alone, we've got the agents of the system headed by an always brilliant Hugo Weaving. We've got Trinity's iconic jump kick, and we've got the leap across the rooftops. What in the hell is going on, right? The questions keep coming until Neo and Morpheus sit down about 40 minutes in, and the curtain is drawn back on the realities of this universe. The narrative release is as satisfying as it is terrifying, and it allows them to set the stage for the back half of the movie. If the Wachowskis had tried to front-load all this information, sure, they would have built the world, but it wouldn't have hit the same. For example, when Neo is recovering on board the Nebuchadnezzar after being flushed out of his pod, we get this brilliant exchange.
Why my eyes, sir? You've never used them before.
If we understand the full context of this question going into it, the answer falls flat. Sure, we can make inferences at this point, but there's a vast difference between suspecting the answer and knowing the answer. Additionally, the strange, almost techno-magic system they'd created would have been blasé by the time Neo accepts his position as the savior. To illustrate what I'm talking about, let's take a look at when Trinity is speaking to Neo through his computer. By this point, we have no idea what's going on. All we know is that this Trinity character seems to be able to see the future, telling Neo to follow the white rabbit. It's this mystery, combined with the seemingly magical power, that is driving us forward at this point. If we knew the rules already, then we know that Trinity is just reading the Matrix's code and seeing that woman approaching Neo's door. Morpheus would have gone from a Merlin-esque figure of prophet, guiding Neo on his path, to a side character that's given little more to do than stand there looking cool, which, ironically, is exactly what happened to him in the subsequent films. It's this delayed gratification, this trust that the Wachowskis placed not only in their story, but in their audience, that keeps the film from stagnating and becoming boring. Another aspect of this film that I've always admired is the unique way that it designed not only the machines, but their technology. Over the years, we've gotten plenty of examples of the techno-biological. Everything from the H.R. Geiger-inspired engineers from the Alien franchise to the Borg of Star Trek. Where the former leans heavily on Geiger's overt sexual themes, and the latter prefers to use the biological almost as an afterthought, The Matrix treads an interesting middle ground that sets it apart from its contemporaries. Rather than swing too far in either direction, The Matrix seems to keep the two halves visually distinct. For example, the ports that have been embedded in the pod-grown humans. Yes, we've got shades of Geiger with hoses and needles consistently being inserted into the body, but it's all still distinctly biological. The machines, on the other hand, rather than aping the Borg with their hard lines and sharp edges, prefer rounded panels and segmented tentacles. Yes, this gives them a distinct biological flavor, but there can be no mistake that they are entirely artificial. It's an interesting design language that takes its cues from insects as well as cephalopods, and the closest approximation that I can think of would be the Reapers and their technology from the Mass Effect universe. One of the minor quibbles that I've got with this movie comes in the form of the Oracle. I think she's well written, and Gloria Foster did an incredible job with the character, but I'm just not sure what purpose she serves in the film, at least as it pertains to her appearance in the first movie. I understand that her role was expanded in Reloaded and Revolutions, so her appearance in this one has been retconned to setup. But when you look at the course of Neo's journey throughout The Matrix, she really doesn't do anything. She lies to Neo and tells him that he's not the one, that's capital O, then gives him a cookie and sends him on his way. From Neo's perspective, she didn't tell him anything he didn't already believe at that time. She didn't interact with Morpheus or Trinity. She didn't impart any meaningful information, and the one thing she did say was an outright lie. It just feels like Neo's meeting with her was just a way to get the Nebuchadnezzar's crew into the Matrix so Morpheus could get captured. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here. Let me know down in the comments if you got some insights on it. The last point I'd like to mention isn't anything major, but it relates back to world building and structure. At about 17 minutes into the movie, we get this image of Neo sitting in an interrogation room. At first glance, this looks like any normal bank of CCTV monitors, and it's a visual that many, including myself for a long time, forgot about by the time the credits rolled. Then the second movie came out, and it was revealed that these monitors belonged to the Architect, roughly analogous to a God program within the Matrix, and that each monitor represents a possible action Neo could take at any given moment. With this in mind, we can see that he's doing the exact same thing in each monitor, and we realize that everything is proceeding exactly as the machines predicted and intended. This little 10-second visual shows that the Wachowskis had far-flung ambitions for the lore of this world, well beyond anything that they could touch on in this movie. And it's entirely possible that they'd already worked out how they wanted their story to end. This concept is incredibly important from a writing standpoint, and it's a lesson that seems to have been forgotten by Hollywood at large. You need to know where your story is going. Even if you never get to tell it, you have to have a cohesive destination in mind, or everything flies off the rails. It's one of the reasons that Marvel's Infinity Saga worked so well, and it's also the reason that the IP has been floundering ever since Endgame. They had a destination in mind, all that was left was the journey to get there. The Matrix is lauded as one of the most brilliant pieces of filmmaking in history for a reason. Everything from its world design to its characters and the actors that play them, right down to the revolutionary way it shot its action, has elevated it to be a staple in not only its genre, but in cinema overall. And while I'm sure most of you watching already know this, hopefully my little video has convinced someone who wouldn't normally watch this type of movie to give it a shot. Anyway, that's all I've got for you this time, so if you could do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons, I'd really appreciate it. Every little bit really helps me out. Also, go ahead and take a look at the other videos on my channel or hit up my website to see my blog and maybe check out my books on Amazon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.